So I was watching the end of a mock draft for some high stakes snob league this morning, just to kind of get a sense of what the overall meta is. And I'm seeing some differences, like the running back markets in these higher stakes leagues are being pushed down to where they're extremely valuable, and the wide receiver as a whole is being pushed up to the point where like a lot of guys have no upside. But today, why we want to talk about this is the tight end market. And I was just thinking about this, so I decided, hey, on a Sunday night, I'll pop this out. That how we should be dealing with the tight end market, or more importantly, how you should be dealing with the tight end market this year in fantasy football. Because again, part of the problem we have with fantasy football is taking the wrong information from the previous year that we should have done and trying to jam that square peg into a round hole. And this year, there's no better example of this than Travis Kelce, who's about to turn 34. Now, in all honesty, I've never drafted Travis Kelce, even though almost every single year I've told myself like he's a unicorn and I need to go out and overspend on this unicorn. And I've never done it because I always get greedy and I think I can figure something else out. And then there was that period of time with Waller and Mark Andrews and Kittle where it looked like there was more than one unicorn on the market, but there's only one unicorn, and that's Travis Kelce. So, how should you attack the tight end market this year? Well, it depends. If you think Travis Kelce is a unicorn, then he should be your number one overall draft pick. If you think that Travis Kelce is 34 and that Father Time is undefeated, then you should probably fade Travis Kelce. This year, I tend to think I'm going to fade Travis Kelce because the one of the things that I find most satisfying about fantasy is finding that guy someplace else. That like quarterback markets that way, the tight end markets that way. Uh, so this year, like once again, I'm going to go to that well, and I'm going to look at tight ends someplace else, because if I have to spend, and you know it should be clear. If you believe that Travis Kelce is a unicorn, he should be the number one overall pick, the 101. I think that Father Time's going to get him, and it may not be this year, but I'll keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect the outcome that I'm eventually going to get. So if you don't get Travis Kelce, because even if you think Travis Kelce is a unicorn, you have to have the right pick. Right now, you're probably looking at having a pick no later than the sixth or seventh pick to in order to get Kelce. So what do you do? What do you do if you can't get Kelce with pick number one overall, or you're at pick 8 and you know that you're going to be shit out of luck? Well, luckily for you, there's a lot of other options this year that may have a little bit of unicorn to them. And first and foremost, we have Mark Andrews. Now, the Baltimore offense is always really good for fantasy from the standpoint of Lamar Jackson being a cheat code when he's healthy. But the reality of it is, it's never really been that big of a passing threat. This year may be a little different. And one of the things that we want to look at with tight ends is there's a couple things that make it really simple. Like they need to be the number one option on their offense or the number two option on a high volume passing offense. And we usually want to go not good we don't want good offenses, we want not bad offenses, because not bad offenses tend to funnel their opportunity to their good players, while good offenses tend to spread that stuff around because, well, they're good. So in this case, like, we have a lot of the factors with Mark Andrews and Lamar Jackson, where he's going to be the number one on a not bad to good offense that does project to potentially throw the football more. So Mark Andrews is a great pick. And the difference is, you see with the ADP on Underdog right here, that like you will be spending somewhere between an early third, you'll be spending an early third to early fourth round draft pick on to get Mark Andrews. That's great value considering. So he's on my board. He's a guy I am looking at. TJ Hawkins is another one. Likely not going to be the number one in Minnesota. May even end up falling in number 3, but this is an offense that does project to have the overall highest passing volume. So you got to like him there. I do think that, unlike Mark Andrews, who could probably go compete with Kelce, Hawkinson's upside is locked because he's never going to be the number one. So, his ADP right there at 51 overall does make a lot of sense. I would probably tend to fade him because, again, if you want to come in third place, you'll go draft TJ Hawkinson at ADP. If you want to come in first place, you're going to have to do something bold like draft Mark Kelsey or Travis Kelsey, one overall, or Mark Andrews in the second round. That's just the brass tacks of it. You should be fading Kyle Pitts all totally. In guys who show any signs of injury should just be off your board. George Kittle there. He, he's a little interesting because he theoretically could still be the number one, but it's probably going to be not a pass focused offense. Again, we want high passing volume. At his cost, you could mix him in to your lineup, but he's not a guy that I'm super interested in. Everybody's probably heard about Darren Waller here. You know, he could be the number one in an offense that does look like it's going to be ascending. I've seen him other places go as far as the number 2 tight end overall, which has his upside baked into his price. Here on Underdog, he's 78. That's great. That's great value. Now you're the only thing you're going to be competing with in the snob leagues, the high stakes leagues, is that's where a lot of your running back value is because they pushed the running back dead zone down. Evan Ingram is not particularly a great guy, in my opinion, because he's going to potentially even be the number 4 passing threat in that Jacksonville offense, and that's just not a guy has enough upside. Njoku, a little odd, like has one of the best usages for all tight ends, but there's a lot of if, ands, or buts, the variables that we don't like in fantasy for him to be viable. Freiermuth, even if the Pittsburgh offense is better, he's more than likely not going to really. Well, I take that back. He definitely could be the number one passing option in that Pittsburgh offense. But to get up and be able to challenge Kelce, which is what we're looking for here. We're looking for guys that are going to go up and challenge a unicorn, and I just don't see it with Freiermuth. He's probably a little capped. Dolchich is a guy, when you're spending that does, you could see that ADP drop, for most leagues, Dolchich is either at or below draftability. Dolchich is a guy that he could be the number 1 overall threat in Denver. It just becomes an issue of whether or not he's going to that Denver offense is going to be good enough and he's going to be able to take over in front of Jared Judy, who may be a little capped in his skill set. Then we have guys like Dalton Kincaid and Chig and even Dalton Schultz, who could be the number 1. Obviously, once we get past that, we're just looking for number 1s. And if the guy doesn't have the ability, Hayden Hurst is a guy I really like that could potentially be the number 1 in the Carolinas offense this year, and his ADP is going as undrafted a lot of places. So that's what we're looking for in tight ends, and obviously what should be our thought process is if I can't get a unicorn, I have to be able to compete with that unicorn. Otherwise, I'm just settling for what falls in there. And if your league mates are the type of guys that are going to go settle, and I'm going to use Dallas Goedert because he's right there. Dallas Goedert, the chances of Dallas Goedert being the number 1 offense in Philadelphia are like pretty slim, with AJ Brown and Devonta Smith. So what value you're getting out of Dallas Goedert other than a guy, even if he finishes at tight end 6, the guy that rolls or actually finds a guy who can compete with Kelce. If Kelce is what we think Kelce is, the guy who finds that value to compete with Kelce someplace else has just beaten you if you take a guy like Dallas Goedert. So you have to clear these guys off your board, and you're only looking at guys that give you the straightest road to be able to go up against Kelce. Now, that might be you even in a normal redraft league that you're looking at drafting 2 or 3 tight ends because you realize I have to be able to take the swings on a Dalton Kincaid being in that 706 range, 60 catches, 700 yards, 6 touchdowns is probably a good range of outcome for Dalton Kincaid. And if you can get him in a league where he's outside of draftability, you have a guy that's going to go up week to week and be able to beat a Dallas Goedert or at least compete with a Dallas Goedert. So what's the point on drafting a Dallas Goedert? The other guys like Chig Okonkwo, even though he's like a hyper efficient guy, you in a low passing volume, but again, you're getting a guy that just allows you to go out and beat most of the other tight ends that are not unicorns on a week to week level. Or even Dalton Schultz, which I'm not expecting to be necessarily a league winner, but here's a guy that theoretically could compete with anybody who's not a unicorn. So what we're doing is we're looking at Unicorn, and we're looking at Unicorn at prices that allow us to pivot when they don't pay off because there's only one Travis Kelce. That's probably what we should be looking at. And even in our not auction leagues or our snake draft leagues, like, yeah, this year with the guys that are in the first round of the draft, like I would be taking Kelce if I wasn't concerned with the age cliff. After that, like I got a chance at Mark Andrews because I know Mark Andrews can beat Travis Kelce because he's done it before in the past. And once I get beyond that, like I have a Darren Waller, maybe a David Njoku, a Dolchis, a Kincaid, maybe a Chig. I can take Dalton Schultz late and have him compete with all the other mediocre tight ends in the tight end wasteland, and then I could throw like a dollar in an auction lead or 13th round pick on Hayden Hurst and get a startable guy. Because like again, Hayden Hurst, and we look at Irv Smith Jr. If Joe Burrow it comes back, like I could take an Irv Smith in a high volume passing offense and have him compete with a lot of other guys as a number 4 against spending the money on a Dallas Goddard for a number 3. The difference is going to be what in terms of your ability to compete. And if you want a Dallas Goddard, if he's 74 overall in ADP, that means you got to go up around and get him, because if you're just waiting there on value, you're waiting to lose your league this year. So anyway, that's my thoughts on the tight end market. Tomorrow will be quarterbacks.